School leadership interviews are not just about your credentials or your years of experience. They're about how you think, reflect, and lead people. Strong candidates are often overlooked not because they lack readiness, but because a few common statements raise concerns about judgment and a lack of leadership maturity. In this episode, I unpack 3 things you should never say in your school leadership interview and what hiring committees read between the lines when you actually say these things. What's going on, aspiring school leader? I am Dr. Donovan Smalls II, educator, best-selling author, school leadership coach, and I help aspiring school leaders confidently land their first leadership role and lead with impact from day one. Now, today's topic is 3 things you should never say in your school leadership interview. Now, this is for aspiring leaders, obviously, right? We talk about a lot on this podcast about the person that you need to become before you step into a leadership role. We talk a lot about how to prepare properly for that first school leadership role, that interview process, making sure your resume is tight. All of those things are extremely important. But what about the things that you might not know that you shouldn't say during an interview, right? And I think interview prep, this is one of the reasons why I focus on it so much and I coach other people, is because when we talk about interview prep, there really isn't much training that we are introduced to. Many times it's a heavy focus on the leadership competencies that you have in order to land that first leadership role, along with your experience, right? Along with your credentials. But we know that it's not just about your credentials or your leadership experience. It is also about how you are showing up in that interview in terms of answering questions. And so I wanted to unpack 3 things that I think are extremely important in terms of what not to say in your school leadership interview, right? And this is not at all an exhaustive list, right? I'm sure you can think of a ton of things that you shouldn't say in your school leadership interview, but I just want to go through a few common things. Not only have I been on hiring committees and I've seen some of these things occur, but also when I coach people, they've also been able to articulate to me that, yep, they may have said some of these things, right? And so I want to talk about these 3 key points. And point number 1, in terms of 3 things you should never say in your school leadership interview. Number 1 is speaking negatively about your current or former school. Now, although this is listed as the first point or the first thing that you shouldn't say, this is probably one of the most important things, right? Because when you criticize your principal, your district, your former district, staff, or school culture, it says a lot about you and your lack of leadership maturity. Regardless of what the experience was or is right now, you have to learn, particularly as a leader, that you cannot demonstrate or articulate these things in an interview because it shows that you haven't actually learned from the situations that you are in, right? Either you are continuing to grow in your leadership or you're in maybe a situation that isn't favorable, but you are actually still learning. To be honest, some of the times that I've learned the most have been from leaders who, or situations rather, that haven't been ideal, right? And just because something isn't ideal for me doesn't mean that it's not a great situation, right? Everything is subjective. We have to look at the context underneath what we're saying. And so if you go into an interview talking bad about a former principal that you had, the district or the hiring committee might think, okay, what's the difference between you saying the same things about us? And so you have to have a level of maturity, even if the hiring committee asks you a question about, okay, how did you deal with a situation that was unfavorable? You have to be able to turn that negative situation, that situation that wasn't the best for you, you have to be able to turn that in your interview in a way that is actually a positive in terms of your leadership and your growth and how you developed over time. And those are some of the things I help aspiring school leaders with when I coach them, right? We go through real scenarios that you might experience, real questions that you may be asked so that we can work through those things and you can hear from somebody who's actually sitting in a leadership seat, so you can know and prepare a little bit better, right? And I think it makes all the difference. Even in difficult environments, interview panels listen for reflection, professionalism, and your ability to lead through challenges. When you become a school leader, you are going to have to lead through challenges. You are going to have to lead through passive aggressiveness. You are going to have to lead through microaggression, micro insults, all of those things. You're going to have to lead through that with professionalism, with grace, because sometimes when you show up authentically, it rubs people the wrong way. And that's not to say that you need to change, but that is to say that you still have to be able to handle those situations with grace and keep the dignity of the other person in your mind as you continue to go through your leadership journey. All of that stuff matters. So when you go on that first school leadership interview, you're trying to land that role, do not speak negatively about your current or former school. Trust me, it's going to hurt you if you do, right? And so I want to give you the heads up now so that when you go into that first school leadership interview, even if you are asked a question about a challenging situation that you went through, you're talking about the leadership growth. Yes, you're being honest about what happened, but you're able to turn that situation into something positive that the hiring committee can see, wow, they actually, because it could be a test, right? They could actually be testing you to see what you're going to say, to see if there's going to be any negativity. But if you can turn that negativity into a positive, you're headed in the right direction. So again, number one was speaking negatively about your current or former school. Number two, in terms of 3 things you should never say in your school leadership interview, I just want to support wherever needed. While meant to sound cooperative and flexible and collaborative, this can suggest a lack of vision, initiative, or leadership voice. See, here's the thing, right? Let's say you want to be an assistant principal. You are going to have an outline of roles and responsibilities and expectations from your principal, but you must also be proactive. You cannot just be passive in terms of your leadership. Remember, you are a leader. So leadership means that you have to go ahead of people sometimes. Leadership means that you have to make critical decisions that are going to impact other people. So when you are doing that or keeping that mind, I want you to keep that mindset. I want you to keep that particular mindset as it relates to you being a leader and not just a manager. There is a difference, right? When you are a leader, you are somebody who's going to be innovative. You are going to take initiative. But when you are a manager, sometimes you're just managing the status quo. You're just making sure that nothing goes wrong. And although leadership and management go hand in hand, there is a difference. And so a hiring committee is not just looking at you to come and manage things. That is an aspect of your leadership, but they want you to still lead within your lane, within your role. And so when you go to the interview and you start talking about things like, yes, I just want to be supportive, I'm here to help wherever I can, I think that is implied. But the issue behind that is, are you actually going to lead? Because there are going to be times when many times, if not most of the time, your principal is going to be leading the building, right? They're going to be leading holistically. And you are going to be responsible for specific roles. And you have to be able to show up as a leader in those roles. So that's what the hiring committee is going to be looking for. School leadership isn't about doing whatever is asked. It's about guiding adults, which is challenging, but it's about guiding adults, making decisions, and shaping a school culture and instructional program. You have an aspect. The team gets better when individuals get better. You are a part of a team. You will be a part of a team once you land that first leadership role. So I don't just want you to think of you being a support person. Yes, you're going to be supportive, but you are a leader. Effective leaders are intentional, proactive, and lead with purpose, not just react to requests. So keep that in mind. You are a leader, not just a manager. You have to do both. So go into that school leadership interview not sounding like somebody who's just solely going to be supportive to whatever the vision of the principal is going to be, or the supervisor is going to be, or the director is going to be. You have to start thinking like a leader. Start being and showing up as a leader. Yes, support is a part of the role, but you are a leader. So point number 2, I just want to support wherever needed. Again, that's one of the things that you should never say in your school leadership interview. And lastly, point number 3, in terms of 3 things you should never say in your school leadership interview, I just want to get out of the classroom. Immediate red flag if you say that, right? Immediate red flag, because this frames leadership as an escape for you, rather than a commitment to serving teachers and students at a higher level. This also can raise a red flag because the hiring committee could be thinking, okay, is this person just going into being a school leader, school leadership, because they are looking for a raise in salary, right? An increase in their salary. Listen, transparently, we are all adults. We do understand that there is an increase in salary when you become a school leader. But if that is your sole purpose for becoming a school leader, in addition to just wanting to get out of the classroom, then it's going to show in your interview. It's going to show up in your disposition. It's going to show up in your language, right? Thoughts become things. What we think about constantly is going to come out of our mouths, right? We understand that, what comes out of our mouth can actually either build up or tear down. People can see through what's actually in your heart by what comes out of your mouth. So be cognizant, right? Be self-reflective enough. Be honest with yourself to have these conversations about why you're getting into school leadership, because if it's just to come out of the classroom, how can you actually be the instructional leader that you should be, that you want to be, that you are striving to be if you're not in classrooms? If you're not able to coach teachers and help get them to the next level, are you actually relevant? So these are questions that I also want you to think about, right? Reflect on that. What's the true reason? Now, if you want to get out of the classroom because you want to increase your impact, right? In terms of increasing student achievement, improving teacher practice, that is completely different. But to say that I just want to get out of the classroom, that's something that we want to avoid. We want to stay away from. Interview teams want to hear a deep instructional purpose, which is going to include you being in the classroom anyway, not dissatisfaction disguised as ambition. Let me say that again. Interview teams want to hear a deep instructional purpose, not dissatisfaction disguised as ambition. If you are dissatisfied with being in the classroom, again, people are going to be able to tell, and they're going to be able to see that your ambition is either tied to a paycheck or your ambition is tied to maybe just the clout, right? It could be the perception of what leadership actually is, and you truly don't understand what it means to be a leader. So you have to be authentic in who you are. And I want you to actually be reflective regarding the reasons why you want to get into school leadership, because it's going to show. If you're a passionate educator and you see leadership as just the next step in terms of you supporting other people, that's different. If you see leadership as you stepping into a calling, that's different. If you see leadership as you stepping into your purpose, that's different. Yes, there are other tangible things, right, that come with it. But if that is your sole motivation and purpose, it's going to show during your interview. So again, leadership grounded in service, and you know that I always talk about servant leadership. Leadership grounded in service carries far more weight than leadership driven by avoidance. So again, point number 3, in terms of 3 things you should never say in your school leadership interview, is I just want to get out of the classroom. Now, when we talk about these 3 points, when we talk about our school leadership interviews, I want you to know that I'm here to support you. This is what I am extremely passionate about. It's raising up a generation of leaders, coaching a generation of leaders who are going to be better or best for our kids, right? Who are going to be individuals who start changing the narrative regarding the relationships between teachers and administrators. One of the things I truly despise is the culture that I see many times on social media regarding the negative relationship of teachers and administrators, teachers and school leaders. Yes, there is a reality to that, but I'm committed to helping to change that narrative. Why? Because we are truly on the same team, but we have different roles. And I want leaders to take responsibility for changing that narrative. Why? Because we are leaders. I'm not leaving it up to teachers. You're the one who is saying that you want to step into leadership. Well, let's start changing that narrative. We don't lead from trying to flex our authority. We lead through collaboration. We lead in terms of being servant leaders. We are leading, trying to make sure that we are the most supportive individuals as possible, but making sure that we are also going ahead of people, doing the work, continuing to develop ourselves to be the best that we can be so we can coach other people so that they can be the best that they can be. And if that's you, if you are somebody who knows that you need additional support regarding interview prep, leadership development, let's talk, let's have a conversation. Because let's be real, there is a lack of individuals who are talking about interview prep regarding school leadership, helping aspiring school leaders get to the next level. I mean, some of you have been applying and interviewing, and you might not actually know what you're doing wrong. You might not be doing anything wrong, right? You just might need additional coaching. You might need additional support. You might need somebody to truly bounce ideas off of, right? Have a dialogue with in terms of what to expect during your school leadership interview. And if that's you, let's have this conversation. Let's see if we can help you get to the next level, get to where you know that you want to be, where you know that you should be, so that you can start raising student achievement, supporting teachers, helping them improve in their practice, and literally changing communities. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Aspiring School Leader Podcast. As always, I hope you have a great week of teaching, leading, and learning. Take care.